Hello, everyone, and happy Friday to you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know it's been a very challenging week, and you might be looking at your financial statements or your online access and being a little concerned about how the financial markets have been doing the last few weeks. No surprise there. We continue to see key risks in the financial markets on well, first off, from sky high inflation, right? Pending worries about increasing interest rates from the Fed, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, of course, and don't forget, once again, and still in the back of things, the pandemic. So we've got a lot of questions that have come in. I've done a lot of speaking this week from many groups who asked me to talk about the financial markets. So I want to come and talk to you about what we're looking at, what we're seeing, and to give you some perspective of what we're doing going forward. Now, one of the questions we continue to hear, and you might have been thinking about this on your own as well, is what do we need to know about investing right now? So I wanted to start with some good news. Russia's impact on the United States economy, believe it or not, is actually minimal. Now, the amount of trade between Russia and the United States is not at this stage, believe it or not, something that you should be greatly worried about. There's actually very little exposure. Now, of course, I understand, gas prices have gone up, natural gas prices have gone up, and certainly a lot more concerns, right, of increased spending offshore. But in terms of US imports, there's actually a small number, the percentage of imports from the United States to Russia, actually from Russia or Ukraine for that matter, is actually small. The percentage of revenue generated, in fact, by the S&P 500 companies in Russia is even lower. And there's good news too in terms of jobs. You may have seen this just recently. Last month, the US economy had great job numbers. In fact, we added 678,000 jobs in February, and that was a far exceed of expectations of the job market here. Now, of course, there's still a lot to be concerned about. We certainly don't like to see challenges offshore and here domestically. And of course, we know excess spending is never a good thing. But there are certain things that we can worry about, and there's certain things that we can control. And the financial markets, unfortunately, isn't, as you know, something that we can control. But there are certain things that we should be paying attention as well. That way, we can better our own personal investment decisions, how we manage our household finances, how we plan for our future, how we plan for retirement, and our kids' education, and all of those important financial goals. Now there are certainly a lot of things that we are still worried about. And here at Sun Group Wealth Partners, these are some of the things. And definitely we're very concerned and paying attention to the European markets. Many of us have exposure to the European markets, whether in ETFs, in mutual funds, in our various investments, stocks, bonds, and whatnot. And as you know, Europe continues to be heavily dependent on Russian energy exports. And in fact, we are also very dependent on Europe as well. Sadly, in fact, Germany could actually be headed into a recession. And we are absolutely in a global economy. So some sectors in the US market that have more international exposure should be on your radar. And these are areas that you should be thinking about, talking about. And if you feel like you're overweighted or underweighted, these are areas that you want to reach out to us to have a discussion on, right? First off, we know that there's going to be higher energy costs. We're seeing that across the board. If you're filling up your gas tank, maybe you did this week. Maybe you saw the article in your local newspaper. I know here at the Los Angeles Times, there was an article with a photo of gas prices reaching over $7 a gallon on 87 octane in Los Angeles County. And just imagine what that price will be in a few weeks from now. It's probably going to go higher rather than less in the near future. So you're probably seeing that. You're probably seeing the increase in natural gas as well. And you're definitely probably seeing the prices increase on your grocery bill, right? I've never paid this much for romaine lettuce in my life. And I'm sure many of you feel the same way. So our expenses continue to go higher, and sanctions are expected to create significant financial chaos to Europe. And unfortunately, that is the hard fact of a global economy. Things are going to get more expensive. Energy costs are going to get more expensive. And of course, the way of us getting our goods at the supermarket, the things that we need are transported via vehicles that are powered on, on energy, right? On gas and oil, which is of course impacted. And of course, travel is going to get more expensive. A lot of things are going to trickle down. So unfortunately, although it's not a direct impact, but nonetheless, it will definitely impact our wallets here in the United States. You should expect that. And you're seeing it already. Now, these sanctions are expected to create significant financial chaos to Europe. And because of these sanctions as well, this also could mean a potential slowdown in the rebound for our US based tech sector. Now, as you know, the most global of all the S&P 500 sectors is technology. And many of you I know are comfortable and have had exposure in technology industry. Obviously, here in California, we know technology very, very well. Many of our clients are comfortable with that sector. Many work in the technology industry. But that being said, obviously you're seeing a considerable amount of volatility if you have tech exposure in your portfolio, which pretty much most people do. Now, so where is a safer sector, right? Is there other areas that maybe if you're looking to rebalance or whatnot, are there things that could actually help your portfolio? Certainly, utilities here in the United States have virtually no exposure to international markets. Now, it doesn't mean that prices won't go up. That's not what I'm saying. Because generally, they're able to increase higher natural gas prices, for example, right? But it's a good idea to make sure that you have diversification in your investments. And in fact, if you didn't see this already, last week I shared a brand new video out talking about how to make your investment choices right now in the current market environment, which moves you should be making, how you should be investing, which accounts you should be adding in, and how you should be taking advantage of weaknesses in today's financial markets. Now, if you haven't seen that video, we have added it to our website, which you can find at sungroupwp.com. Okay, I'll repeat that again. It's sungroupwp.com, and I will go ahead and put it into our comments right here so you have that. But definitely check that out. I have a brand new video on that. I know a lot of you have seen it, and but if you haven't, that's definitely where you want to go. I go into a lot more detail of where you should be invested in. So we do know that this is what's happening, right? We know that diversification is very, very important, but what else? Now, I want to share this quote with you because I feel like it's a good indication. It'll give you a good idea of what we're going through. And this is the quote: "We must accept finite disappointment, but we never lose infinite hope." And this is by the great Martin Luther King Jr. Now, I'm sure, and I'm sure you know, this is probably his quote, probably didn't have to do anything with the financial crisis, right? The financial volatility that we're experiencing in the stock market. But I think it's really important because it really sort of sums up really well of what we need to go through right now. There's a lot of disappointment. There's a lot of struggles. In fact, just recently I had a chance to speak with my friend Anton in the Ukraine. So you can imagine how much disappointment and struggle he and his family are going through. It was a very rare occasion that we were actually able to connect, believe it or not, via video. And I said, "When can you talk? I would love to see you. We're worried about you," right? And he said, "Well, during the day, we're sort of, going back and forth to the bomb shelter for protection. And then in the evenings, we hear the sirens of air raids. So maybe around 8 o'clock my time, would be a good time for us to connect." And it was just like, it just puts things in perspective, how fortunate we actually are able to have these conversations still, and actually think about our investments, think about planning for the future when we know that all of us are going through something in our lives, some negative, some positive, but it gives you perspective of we can only control what we can control. We can only plan what we can plan. But planning and knowledge is power. So here's what I want to share with you. Now, historically, the S&P 500 averages about 1 10% correction a year. Okay, 1 10% correction a year for the S&P 500. Now, it's been 2 years since we've had one. So 2 years without a 10% correction. So you might say, in fact, irregardless of what's happening in the Ukraine, irregardless of all the other stresses that we're experiencing on our day to day, that you could actually say we're overdue for a pullback. So, you know, what we're experiencing right now, although feels awful, and I agree it does, but it is part of investing. It's part of the financial markets, right? Things can't only go up, they have to pull back at some point. So we are overdue for a pullback. So volatility should be expected, and things falling in the near future, believe it or not, should be expected as well. So what does this mean? Is the market going to go dramatically even lower, right? Is it going to go dramatically even lower? In the short term, I think so. I think we should brace for certainly more dramatic volatility. We saw just actually not even last week, just a few days ago, where we got a glimmer of hope. We heard that Ukraine and Russia were going to come together and perhaps come to source some sort of agreement so they can cease fighting. Unfortunately, that didn't turn out to be the case. And we saw that reflected in the financial markets. And I want to talk about that. So many times you see financial experts talk about earnings, right? You talk about inflation number, you talk about unemployment data, you talk about consumer price indexes and consumer spending. And all of that is very, very important when it comes to investing. But there's another thing that I think is sometimes sort of not talked about as much. And I really want to talk about this. And that is that investing, the stock market is reflecting how people feel. So if more people on any given day feel more nervous or uncertain about the financial markets, right? That can translate to more people selling. Yeah, whether it be taking profits or just getting out of sectors that they feel nervous about, a lot of that can trickle into the market. So you're going to see that. And then all of a sudden, people feel hope. They feel like there's a glimmer of good news, right? Maybe this company is looking to buy this company. Maybe this company is going to have, unique technology that could solve something that will help us out. There's that hope, and you see some movement, and you see the market go more positively as well. So don't forget that sometimes you might feel like you don't know what's happening with the market. You're not an expert in the space, but sometimes if you sit back and you just think about that, it will give you perspective, and it will help you go through these larger challenges of insecurity and market volatility. So do you know that large dips should be expected? However, there is also good news, and I want to talk about this. Okay. So just like with forest fires here in California, we have a lot of wildfires. Depending on where you are, you probably experience it as well. Sometimes we'll see like a hillside and it's like completely charred, right? And then you're like, wow, how sad, that fire went through. And it's certainly sad, especially when families, our firefighters are hurt and families, are having to move. It's really, really sad. But we do know the reality. And the reality is this, that over a few days, if you were close by, you would see this, right? If you're really close to this charred hill, you would see this. In a few weeks, in a month, certainly when you drive by, all of a sudden you're seeing grass come back, flowers come back, trees come back, right? And all of a sudden the chart starts to go less and less away. And that's actually what you're going to experience with financial markets too. So a little bit of rain, a little bit of sun, things start to get better. And as scary, as unnerving as today's market is, and it is, I agree, it certainly is scary, and it should, and I know many people are stressed out. We're getting record levels of phone calls at Sun Group Wealth Partners, record numbers of phone calls, emails at Sun Group's website, getting a lot more traction as well. The good news is that growth will continue. And in fact, when we study previous corrections and bear markets, the S&P 500 index has risen nearly 90% of the time, a year or two later, with very strong, healthy returns. In fact, oftentimes, we actually see this come back 6 months from the time of like great financial stress, really stressful times. So what I'm telling you now is we look back in history, we look at Brexit, we look at 9/11, all these times in history where it just felt so icky and so terrible and you felt so out of control, things do come back. So things do get stronger and better. And so you might be asking, where should I be investing right now then, Winnie? Right? So I have good news. I did actually prepare that video. And if you go jump on our website, sungroupwp.com, which I've shared in comments here. If you can, if you're watching me live, sungroupwp.com, go to videos, and actually it's top video right now. And it talks about where I think you should be investing right now. Okay, so you can go ahead and take a look at it. And if you have any questions, definitely reach out so we can talk about it in more detail. The other question is, of course, should I be making changes to my portfolio? And that's a really, really good question. That is one that I highly recommend that you reach out if you have a question regarding your own portfolio, maybe your own wealth management needs, right? Maybe your financial plan. Maybe you've got 6 or 7 401k scattered at different companies that you used to work for. Maybe you have an old insurance policy and you don't know if that's still applicable to you. Maybe you have old annuity policies. Maybe your parents had old annuity policies. Maybe they had old mutual funds or stocks, and you just don't know if it's still a good fit for you anymore. Well, that's an opportunity for us to plan, for us to discuss, and really deploy in a really smart way during this time and also in the future. And I know a lot of you are going through this process, organizing your finances for tax season, maybe looking at things that you feel like could get, would be beneficial to get that second opinion. So I want to invite you to do that. I want definitely to invite you to, come and have a discussion with us. We would love to hear from you. I want to share this out. Our phone number is 949 625 6800. Again, it's 949 625 6800. I'll go ahead and share it out for you on chat so you have it. And so, yeah, you can reach out, ask for Rebecca, Cheryl, Jason, anybody who picks up the phone, ask them if you want to set up a complimentary consultation. And most important, for those of you who are clients who are watching right now, just know that we are watching this. We're reviewing your portfolios. We're definitely on it, and we're going to get you through this process. And actually, I'm actually kind of excited because I think there's some opportunities for us right now and also in the near future. So we're definitely being very active with our portfolios. We're keeping close eye and we're making changes and adjustments, and most important, additions to the portfolios right now. So I think we're going to have some good times ahead. We're going to have some good conversations. But do know, don't be worried. Don't be stressed. We'll get through this together. We'll get through this together. Stay well, stay safe. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And of course, don't be a stranger. Always love hearing from you. And I'll see you again next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye now.